Alrighty, so before I do a news of the week episode for these past couple of days, because there are a lot of news that has happened in these past couple of days, a lot of transfer rumors and also signings that has happened. I just wanted to quickly say that I'm going to change the plan a little bit, and that I'm actually going to do a full review instead of splitting the review into two part. And the big reason why I'm doing that, and I'm doing it tomorrow, that is because I spent the last 4 hours trying to get my new internet setup. I of course got a new internet. I got the Xfinity internet, which will be much faster when it comes to uploading my video. But I had a hell of a time to try to set it up. And when I mean a hell time, I mean just a nightmare kind of time to try to set everything up. Had to get through the customer service line. Took about almost 2 hours to finally able to set things up correctly. And the good news is it is now all set up. But that also means is that because I took so long to do so, most likely I will not have enough time in terms of doing part one of the review. So I'll just do a big review, and most likely I get a chance to see how fast the upload speed will be for these video. I mean, gone are the days in terms of waiting about an hour or two for a video to be uploaded. Probably it's gonna be less than that, even in these big reviews that I'm doing. But with that being said, like I said, we had a lot of news that has happened in this past week. News that it happened even during the games that happened yesterday as well, which means that, yeah, we are getting closer and closer in terms of the secondary transfer window. This is kind of expected where we're starting to see some transfer rumors and signings that has happened. But first of all, we did had a head coach that was hired, and this one is something that we already mentioned before. DC United officially hired Renee went her as their new head coach as well. And I already mentioned this before how, I mean, I don't know if this is going to move the needle for DC, consider how things have gone for them. And that, I know there's that old saying that there's a new head coach booze, and maybe DC might go on a good bit of a good run for the first couple of games. But yeah, that new head coach booze doesn't usually last for the rest of the season. And with the way how DC are just so behind in terms of standing, I mean, when you look at the standings right now, it feels like the East right now, there's really not a lot of competition in terms of the playoff spot. Maybe Chicago is kind of the only team that is still within touching distance. In fact, they're actually within touching distance. They're just below the red line right now. But the rest of the team near the bottom are pretty far away from the standings. And that, I mean, some of the team might still have a chance, maybe 11 or 12 plays. But yeah, some of those teams are pretty much already done this season. And DC is kind of one of those teams where I don't think this is going to move a needle with how bad they have played this season. Again, I mentioned before, it's the issue of this team is not because of the head coaches. When you have gone through so many head coaching changes in the past couple of years and having a revolving door in the coaching spell, it's not the coaching is the problem with this team. It's the front office and obviously the ownership of this team that has just kind of completely run this team to the ground to a point where I really felt for DC fans. I mean, I know how it feels when you have bad ownership. As a Quakes fan, I can assure you to that. But yeah, it's sad to see how things have gone, and especially for such a proud franchise like DC United, a franchise that will always remember as the original uh dynasty in MLS. And it feels like things have just it feels like that is almost like a century ago that has happened, and it's kind of sad to see how much things have kind of fallen apart for this team when once this team was the cream of the crop in MLS. Now, San Diego, well, the newest team in MLS, they have acquired defender Aiden Harrigan from Eintracht Frankfurt on loan. Now that this also happened just a couple of days after they decided to not renew Milan Iloski contract. Well, he's on loan, and they actually terminated his loan contract as well. Though, I know some San Diego fans are kind of shocked by that. His loan was already going to end after the next game, so there was really no difference in terms of them terminating on loan. They either let it expire or the fact that they just decided to do it one less game. But either way, first to talk about the Milan, they lost the loan deal that was not renewed. Kind of surprised that it is the case. I mean, maybe this is another example of him playing just so well that maybe he got priced out of this team. But at the same time, I mean, with the way how he's been performing, you gotta say San Diego at least needs to listen to Northland in terms of the price that they of course would pay, because he has play a huge dividend in terms of San Diego uh spot going forward, and especially the number 9 position, a spot that has been a big question for the San Diego team. It definitely was solved when Iloski was there with the way that he was scoring goals left, right, and center. And you saw how in these last two games, yes, they did well in the first game without him. Big part of that is because Andre Dry really kind of picked up the slack. But the last game against Toronto, that was pretty evident of them not having Milan Iloski there, and how if he would have come off the bench, I think he would have absolutely made a difference for this team. But instead, that's not the case. They don't have a real number 9 on this team, and they're definitely that's definitely showing the problem, as I'll talk about in the review of the issue that they have on the attack, because of them not signing probably the most pivotal piece in terms of the attack besides Anders Dreyer. Now, in terms of their defender that they got, it's another fullback. They have a lot of fullbacks on this team. I mean, it's kind of surprising how much fullbacks that they have on this team. Now, keep in mind, they also just got rid of one of their fullback in Jasper Loftusson. He is actually going to be going back to Europe and going to be playing for a second division team in Poland. So I guess this is kind of a like to like replacement. But yeah, they have a lot of fullbacks on this team, and some of them are pretty good. Some of them are kind of questionable, but nevertheless, it doesn't hurt if you decide to add more depth, and that's exactly what San Diego is doing. Now, Inter Miami, they are actually now close to sign Rodrigo de Paul from Atletico Madrid. And by the way, did I say from Inter Miami? I meant Atletico Madrid. That's a little bit of a mistake there when I wrote down the notes for this News of the Week episode. So apparently, it seems like they're using a loophole to do so. So the loophole is that they're going to sign him on loan there, and that his contract apparently fall under the DP threshold. And once Sergio Busquets does decided to retire, which it feels like that seems like could be the case for him, alongside with Luis Suarez, that opens the DP spot, and now Rodrigo De Paul basically takes that DP spot. I know it's one of those loophole trick. Again, this loophole trick is very similar to what we saw when the Galaxy bring Christian Pavone. Remember a couple of years when they just didn't have any DP spot to try to sign Christian Pavone, but they found this loophole that they can exploit it. And once Zlatan did leave the team, they immediately bring Christian Pavone and make him a DP contract. And I know a lot of people were not happy with that loophole, and I'm pretty sure people are still not happy to this day in terms of that loophole. I mean, if this is a loophole that probably should be fixed in back in 2019, it probably should be fixed now in 2025 as well. But credit to Inter Miami, they took advantage of this loophole. Again, they have done nothing wrong in terms of the roster rule, despite a lot of people have point out how in the world do they get unlimited international spot with the way that it feels like they just signed all Argentine player, and especially all Messi's friend. But overall, I think this could be a good signing, and especially Rodrigo De Paul. He was definitely a big part of that World Cup run. He still had plenty left in the tank. That's the most important thing I think Inter Miami fans are going to be excited about, because with all these old players that Inter Miami has had, and especially Messi and his friends that are still there. And this also kind of makes me wonder: is Messi going to be staying around for 2026? Because you don't bring Rodrigo De Paul and basically not bring Messi along of the ride. There is still a big question of what's going to happen with Messi. He does have an option into 2026, and especially with them opening up the new stadium in 2026 as well. This is a big chance. The fact that I think they would love to try to pick up that option for Messi and have his final year in this brand new building, a building that we will forever call the house that Messi built. And that, yeah, I think this would kind of make sense. The fact that they decide to bring in DePaul and keep Messi probably for at least another year. Now, St. Louis, they have signed Senegal Youth International follow Fall. Now, I don't know too much about this guy other than the fact that maybe this is just kind of a depth signing for the St. Louis team. I mean, defense is kind of one of the things that they need to sort out. Of course, ever since Dave Pritchley have took over on an interim basis, they have definitely played a much more attacking brand of soccer. But that as also means that their defense are pretty much getting exposed. I think again the reason why Olaf Melber played that very defensive style is that he probably knows that this defense is not good, and that he played that defensive style just to make sure they don't leak goals and give up chances. And to be fair, they didn't do so during that time. They were one of the better defensive team, but that also means they sacrifice a lot on the attack to a point where the fans were absolutely up in arms in terms of how defensive that they are throughout every single game and just kind of begged for a change once the resort didn't really start to work out for them. So yeah, them getting defensive help, not a big surprise. They're trying to booster that defensive help where they can get to a stage where they can still show their attacking force. I mean, there's no doubt this St. Louis team has some good attacking talent. It's the defense that they need to sort it out, and if they can get some good defensive reinforcement, Dave Critchley and or whoever is going to be the permanent head coach of this team can play that style and make St. Louis back to where they should be, like what we saw in their first season. Now, NYCFC, they have officially transferred Burke Risa to Moto FK. So Burke Risa, he hasn't really kind of got a lot of minutes. I mean, he has got minutes, but definitely not as much as I think he would like. And he decided that, you know what, I want to go back to my native country, Norway, and that's exactly what happened in this case. So yeah, it's a good. I don't know exactly how much that they of course got for him, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be a pretty good amount. And then the Columbus Crew, they have acquired Hugo Picker from Garngamps, and I'm not going to mention too much about this because I've already talked a little bit about it when I mentioned this transfer rumor in my last News of the Week episode. But they also renew the loan of Anders Herrera. Anders Herrera has been a very under the radar signing. I think he has fit in Wilfred Nazi's system very well, and he's played a pivotal role for this Columbus Crew team. So no surprise that they decided to renew his loan until the end of the season. Now, moving on, in terms of talk about some transfer rumors, and again, we have some very spicy transfer rumors that has happened in these past couple of days, and that starts off with Pumas are getting very close to sign Vancouver Whitecaps player Pedro Vite for $8 million. Now, for that amount of money, I mean, it's hard for Vancouver to try to pass on for. And this is also kind of interesting that we have seen recently that a lot of MLS teams they're okay with deciding to sell players to Liga MX. In fact, it's actually happened more often than I think I've ever seen in the last 2 years as so. Maybe part of that partnership with Liga MX and MLS being very strong. And again, $8 million for Pedro Vite. I'm assuming they might get some sell on fee as well because I'm pretty sure that Vancouver would love to have some sell on fees as well, especially of how talented Pedro Vite has been this season, and if he continued to do well with Pumas and maybe sell off to a European team, Vancouver can at least get some of that sell on fee. But still, $8 million, it's definitely a bit big amount of money, and it's one that again I don't as good as a player Pedro Vite is, and as much as they're gonna really miss his presence for the rest of the season, that is too big of an amount to try to turn off. And then LAFC is reported that they're going to be signing former Montreal midfielder Matthew Shrinier. Remember him? Remember how good he was in that 1 year with Montreal, and especially in Wilfred Nancy's system when Wilfred Nancy was still the head coach of CM Montreal as well. And seems like things haven't kind of worked out for him going to Europe, and now he's maybe coming back to MLS. It's interesting that he's going to be going to LAFC. Consider LAFC is pretty stacked in terms of the midfield spot. I didn't think they really need another midfield. I thought they probably need another defender, especially as we'll talk about in just a bit. There are definitely some bad news for LAFC when it comes to the defender position, especially in the center back position. But nevertheless, I guess this may be just for depth reason, and it's a pretty good depth, especially if Shrinier can get himself back to the form that he was with Montreal a couple of years ago. Maybe he could play into the starting 11 role, though it's not going to be easy because it feels like LAFC have a lot of depth in terms of that midfield role. Now, speaking of LAFC, so there was a talk that maybe Gio Reyna was going to be coming back to MLS. And remember Gio Reyna, a guy that, there was a lot of hype surrounding him. Obviously, we know the unfortunate situation with that scandal that has happened, but he's still a very talented player. Obviously, things have not worked out for him. I mean, he has not really played a lot of minutes with Borussia Dortmund. He then went on loan to Nottingham Forest as well. That was such a weird loan that he went to and didn't really quite work out there either. Going back to Borussia Dortmund, play a couple of minutes there, doesn't play as much as you would expect him to do, and now he's coming back to MLS. So yeah, definitely an interesting kind of journey that is. I mean, it's gone so bad to a point where his stock has really sinking when it comes to the U.S. men's national team as well. So him going to LAFC, coming back to MLS, I don't know if that's a good idea, though. Pochettino, he has select players that has coming from MLS, and he's not afraid to do so as well. Now, whether if that was a good idea, not really, especially what we see in the Gold Cup as well. But yeah, it's kind of sad to see that Gio Reyna's career in terms of it once being a very promising career. I thought he was going to be a very big pivotal role for not only Borussia Dortmund, but also for the U.S. men's national team, especially on the attack, and it just haven't fizzle out. Though again, we'll see whether if he's going to come back to MLS. And again, for LAFC, do they really need another attacking force? Guess it doesn't hurt the fact that they'll get a player like Gio Reyna. I think he's going to do very well coming back to MLS. I could see a very similar situation to what we saw with Ricky Puig, where Ricky Puig didn't really quite work out with the Barcelona team, comes to MLS and has just absolutely light up this league, and a guy that is one of the most electrifying and one of the most exciting player to see in this league. Now, Cruz Azul has just recently rejected a Charlotte FC bid for Giorgio Yakimakis. So this I had a feeling was coming with the way that after things have really not worked out for Yakimakis with Cruz Azul, he has really struggled during his tenure in Liga MX. There is a chance that he might be coming back to MLS. Now, Charlotte definitely are trying to get that number 9, especially they're looking for a replacement for Patrick Ajiman. Don't get me wrong, Tukamati, he definitely has a lot to prove in the way that he's actually done pretty well ever since the departure of Ajiman. He might be the guy that could be in here in terms of that number 9 spot, but that also doesn't mean that Charlotte doesn't want a better option. And I think Yakimakis, if he can just get himself back to the form that he was with Atlanta United, he could be a very electric player. We've seen it even and recently. He's an MLS proven goal scorer as well. Could easily score 10 or 15 plus goals. And yeah, it's going to be interesting which team is going to get him. I mean, Charlotte tried to do so. Not quite sure exactly how much did Charlotte bid to get Cruz Azul. I mean, Liga MX's team, even when they're trying to sell players back to MLS, they tend to ask for a higher amount, which is kind of interesting because MLS team seems like they accept the amount that Liga MX team offer, and they're okay with it, but it's not the other way around. It feels like Liga MX wants to demand a higher fee in terms of replacement, and I guess whatever Charlotte bid to try to get Giorgio Yakimakis back to MLS was not high enough in Cruz Azul high. Now, Austin FC, they are report to sell Danny Pereira to Coventry City for 4 million euros. So this is not a big surprise. Danny Pereira, it's been a very underwhelming season with Austin FC. And you just kind of had a sense I don't think he really fits this system that Nico Estevez run, and it also kind of doesn't help the fact that this system doesn't really fit any attacking player whatsoever. With the way that Nico Estevez being a very more defensive kind of head coach and it's kind of sacrificed a lot on the attacking force. Yeah, it just feels like that just does not play into the strength of Danny Pereira, and it's kind of sad to see because Danny Pereira, this might be his time to showcase, especially after the sale of Driussi there. We thought that maybe he would step into that shoe, and hasn't really quite worked out whatsoever. I'm kind of surprised he still got a chance to go get a move in Europe, especially in the championship. I mean, I'm pretty sure the a lot of championship side they probably are really looking at MLS as a way to get bargain. I mean, we've seen a lot of championship team have come into this league and get some bargain bit things, and that's not a big surprise because we've seen before players that have come into the league does well go to the championship, kind of do well in some sorts, and some of these championship sides are happy to do so. So yeah, 4 million euros. I mean, I feel like they could have definitely got a little bit more if Danny Pereira was actually in form this year, but because he's not in the best of form, I think that amount may be fair amount for Austin to decide to move on for Danny Pereira. And then Atlanta United, they have finally received the $25 million transfer from Botafogo after he transferred to Atletico Madrid. So there was definitely that concern that, for a while with the way that Thiago Almada is going to be moving to Atletico Madrid, that, it basically triggered the $25 million clause that Atlanta United, of course, will get from Botafogo. But because of the situation that Botafogo is in, they're owned by the same owner that owns Leon. I think it's John Texier, if that's it, his name that is. And right now, he is under a lot of heat in Liga right now, especially with Leon as well. With the way that club is pretty much completely bankrupt to a point where they're actually going to get relegated to the second division of French soccer. And now one of his club that he also owned, Botafogo, seems like they're maybe in trouble as well, and that's kind of the reason why the payment wasn't being made. Now the good news is eventually the payment it is settled, and again, $25 million for Atlanta in the books once again. Again, this is part of just a major amount of money that Atlanta United is able to invest. Now, are they able to use that money to reinvest the team wisely? Yeah, that's a different question. And for the most part, it has been a big no, especially with how things have gone this season for Atlanta. But again, Atlanta continued to showcase the 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 ingenuity of developing some good young talent, especially young South American talent, especially selling for a big amount of money. And Thiago Almada is the latest to join that list. Now, moving on, and unfortunately, we got to talk about injuries. And as I mentioned before, for LAFC, there is some bad news surrounding their defense, as Aaron Long is going to be done for the season after a torn ACL that he has. So yeah, definitely a huge blow for this LAFC team. It definitely didn't show at least in the game against Minnesota. I thought they defended very well, and I'll talk more about that in my review tomorrow as well. But still, this he is definitely a leader for that defense for LAFC. And again, there's no doubt that we'll see whether or not they maybe look for some replacement, and maybe some of the guys on that depth chart can step up, because I think in that game against Minnesota it almost felt like those defenders were playing for Aaron Long. They probably saw how devastated that injury that he suffered, and saw their leader go down, that they almost were playing for him and playing for pride for him. So that's kind of the reason why I'm not surprised that LAFC did really well on the defensive front in that game against Minnesota. And then Nuhu, he is actually going to be suspended for additional game by Disco after throwing the ball into the crowd, and also fined for flipping the bird toward the referee as well. So now I actually kind of know what happened. Remember in my review, I actually didn't know what happened. To kind of saw Nuhu getting sent off there. Well, I found out after I did the review. It turns out that yeah, he basically did a Kaku there, basically throw the ball into the crowd inexplicably. And I remember Kaku, I think he got like 2 or 3 games in suspension there. I'm surprised Nuhu probably didn't get more. I guess because Nuhu is such a nice guy like that, the league decided to kind of give him a lighter punishment. And there's no doubt that the character that Nuhu has shown, that was unlike him. I mean, he is a very nice guy both on and off the pitch. He's not a guy that usually his cool so much. So again, there's something that has to really trigger him that kind of loses cool like that. That is very unlike him there. And yeah, I know that he will definitely learn from his mistake. He already apologized to the fans and the players of his action being absolutely unacceptable. And there's no doubt that I think because he's such a likable guy, both in the fan base and in the coaching role, he'll be definitely be forgiven because of that. But he also will know that yeah, he better not make that same mistake again, because yeah, again, that's absolutely unacceptable in Nuhu cases. Just you cannot lose your cool like that, even if things are not going right for you. And yeah, that's kind of what we saw in that game between them and Sporting KC. Now, moving on into the next news. So we have actually got the city that will be hosting the next All-Star game as well, and the next city that will be hosting the All-Star game in MLS is indeed Charlotte FC. They're going to be hosting the All-Star game at Bank of America Stadium. I expect they're going to be filling out that stadium, 70,000 plus so forth. It's also kind of interesting that the next year's All-Star game will be literally a couple of weeks after the World Cup is over. So I wonder how much attention that will draw, and especially will people still have enough finance to actually go to the All Star game, because I'm assuming a lot of people will be making a lot of saving and ready to burn it all up during this World Cup. I'm trying to do the same thing for myself, though I have a feeling I'll probably bankrupt myself pretty badly, especially going to some of the World Cup game next years as well. But yeah, there's no doubt that for Charlotte, great to see that they of course get a chance to host the All Star game as well, and a great chance to see that stadium get filled again. That stadium usually doesn't get filled as much as it should be, but when that stadium is definitely filled, especially there's gonna be 70,000 inside for that game, it should be an electric atmosphere for that All Star game. And then speaking of the All Star game, so we have 6 players that is being added in the All Star team, because we have a couple of players will not be able to make it because of injuries or personal uh, concern. But yeah, the players that were added in the All Star team, including Sam Surridge, Christian Espinoza, Carlos Hill, Hani Mukhtar, Marco Pasalic, and Omar Vargas. It's interesting how some of the names I mentioned are guys that I literally said that were the biggest snub out there. I mean, I mentioned both Sam Surridge and Christian Espinoza, probably two of the biggest snub on this team. I mean, you can't tell me that you are you're letting the Golden Boot leader right now in MLS to not make it into the All Star game. That feels absolutely heresy. See to leave him out there, and yeah, great to see that they decided that yeah they kind of make that mistake, although it wasn't intentional. I mean, obviously very devastated to see Brandon Vasquez not able to make it because of that torn ACL that he suffered. But hey, at least you could maybe make a case that maybe they got the call right with the way that Sam Surridge probably deserved that spot way much than what Brandon Vasquez has done this season. I mean, no disrespect to Brandon Vasquez, he's still a decent player, but Sam Surridge has been lighting this league on fire, and again, it's just an absolute criminal to see him not made it in the first place as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for this News of the Week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board. As always, let me know in the comments below. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.